preposterous, I know it's absurd, but there's another effect of the modern world, even the pollution of the modern world that triggered and affect what we're seeing today. Why do I bring it up? Because we are all living under a different universe. The kids I meet, even my own children, tell me the world that they live in now, since 9/11, is not what it was previously. They all feel fear. They may not really be threatened. Now someone who wants this to happen will say, oh good, we've succeeded. Look, they're all feeling fear. Oh, yes, but the world as it was a much nicer place. And that person who counters that say, well, not for us. Well, maybe you didn't realize it was a nice place. Yeah, people don't like walking around in fear or worried that a nuclear bomb is going to go off, and again, low-level delivery systems in a container ship in Long Beach Harbor. To my mind, that's only a matter of time. That's only a matter of time that's going to happen. And I know the people in the Defense Department know that that's only a matter of time. And that's why they're doing all these absurd things, scurrying around like maniacs, doing things that a lot of us don't think are right to do and don't think that we should be doing, and yet they don't know what else to do because they have the information and know what it is that they're looking at. And it's really a long, involved history of what's going on in the modern world, which is frightening. So the texture of life, it's like 1941, how the world changed for people who lived in this country then. Now you people are, I assume, mostly Americans, whatever your religious background is. So whatever you feel about a given thing, or your home country or your native land, you care about America. If you didn't care about America, you wouldn't be here. I mean, you are, whether you like it or not, American patriots. You may not support every aspect of the American system, neither do I. You may not support, as a given group, who you think control things, or vice versa. You may feel left out. But like it or not, this is your native land, and all you can do is struggle to make it better. And so an attack on the native land ends up an attack on you. So should a nuclear bomb go off in a container ship in Long Beach Harbor, which to my mind is an 85% possibility in the next decade, you're going to, and your children are going to suffer the consequences of that. So, you have to deal with that. And so the world you live in is not a pleasant place anymore. So that's what I mean. The world has totally changed. It's much more nervous. I watch it on the freeways. People drive since 9/11 crazily. It's like they drive with abandon in a way that they didn't used to drive on freeways. My kids tell me the drivers on the freeways now are terrible. They shift in and out. They chase each other down. They are not polite to each other. You say, oh, you're just imagining these things. But no, one isn't. Don't go in the middle here. We have that isn't alternate. Take a seat over here if you can, or on this side if you can. We have a situation where people are, their nerves are frayed, and things are. Okay, so now we've said all that. We've traced a horrific scenario that all of us are facing, whether we like it, whether we're for it, whether we're against it, whether you think it's justified, whether you don't think it is justified. Fortunately for us, in this class, we don't have to deal with it. I just dealt with it in all the ways that I intend to, unless we get some questions at some point concerning it. We're dealing with classical Islam in this class. We do not come up to the modern period. We cut off in the medieval period. So we really, aside from asking occasionally, do we really think this represents what Islam is or isn't? We don't need to face any of those questions, what the contemporary world is about, or whether it should be, or what issues are correct or properly expressing Islam and what are not. We are going to deal with what everybody should know about Islam from a beginner's standpoint. That is, what all Muslims more or less know in common about Islam, up to about the 13th century, the 7th century of Islamic world. Why do I say the 7th century? I don't have anything to write on the board here, so because I don't have one of those sticks, so I'll just not write on. Why do I say the 7th century of the Islamic world as opposed to the 13th century of the Western one? Yeah. Islam dates itself from a different standard than we're normally in the West familiar or consider as the standard to be. We date from the birth of Christ. I like to be equally critical of all religions if I can. We all know Christ wasn't born on that date. So the West has actually a wrong dating system in any case as far as focusing it or basing it on the birth of Christ. We know that if there was a birth of Christ, we scholars I'm talking about, it had to happen before 4 BC, or as far as the one gospel that has a different picture goes, Luke, after 7 AD. But in all events, it was not 0 at the time. This is based on an error in the chronology of Roman numerologists around the 300s. Were making errors. I read something about it just the other day, what the actual mistake was that occurred. But in any case, it's at least 4 years off. It may be 7 years off. But also, not as it, I know one of the mistakes that was made is they weren't considering 0 a year. In other words, 2000, you see, is a year. That was one of the mistakes they were making. You know, I know it's hard to imagine, but 0 is a year. And, you know, 1900 is a year. 1901 is another year. And 0 is a year, 1 is a year, 2 is a year. Follow me? So, I mean, that's hard to comprehend when you're looking backwards in time. But there were other mistakes made, too. Of course, the biggest issue, if you do Jesus studies, which I do also, is if there ever was an historical Jesus that one can actually pinpoint with any accuracy. You know, we have books written about him, but we have books written about Apollo and Zeus and a lot of other Greek mythological godlike individuals. So the question is, you know, though we found our calendar on a given date, we do that by mutual consent. It doesn't mean that that's really an event that we can be sure happened at that moment, the birth of Christ. But anyway, that's the way the Western calendar is based. The Muslim calendar, is it based on the birth of Muhammad?